All right, Fernanda, are we seeing slides or presented
We
view?
are seeing slides and we are recording.
Awesome. All right, go on to the next one. So just a little background on the program. So the grants are available to public, charter, and private schools, and they're available to preschools, K through 12, and colleges and universities. And just a little background on when we started. So the grants have been available. The program was a little bit different back in 2002, but grants available to schools since then. And we've awarded about 2.5 million, and there have been 192 projects at schools across the county. And also wanted to mention one of the goals of this program is to help us towards our um, basically waste diversion goals. So by 2030, we're aiming to divert 75% of our waste to recycling and organics. Um, and yeah, keep going here. So with the timeline, we have a first round, and that is eligible to Head Start in preschool and K-12 schools with at least 50% of students eligible for education benefits like free and reduced lunch, 2-year colleges, and in the first round, you can apply for grants up to 20,000. And then we start taking rolling applications in March, so March 18th. And as long as we have funds, and in most years we do have funds after that initial deadline, and so that's open to any school. Um, Again, preschools, K-12, and colleges for the rolling applications. And then the deadline for the rolling applications is October 15th. And again, that's as funds remain. All right. So just wanted to share what is usually in waste at a school. So as you can see, about half of it is compostable. So that's our food scraps, napkins and paper towels, things like that. And then a little over a quarter is recyclable. So, lots of paper, some milk cartons and, cans, things like that. And then, trash would be things that don't fit into either of those other categories, plastic wrappers, broken, um, like pieces of furniture, things like that. And also wanted to mention if you have any questions throughout, feel free to put them in the chat and Fernanda can pass those along. All right, so going to go through the different objectives for projects in the program, and you can do more than one, but we just kind of group them to make it a little easier. So one would be preventing waste in the cafeteria. So that would be things like starting a sharing table. So if you're not familiar, that's where students would put items from lunch that other students could take. So things like cartons of milk, uh, fruit with a thick peel, like a banana or orange. You can do apples if they get washed, and then things in packaging. Um, Also donating food. So there's a couple routes for that. One would be donating items that the students don't eat. So like this crate has items that the students didn't eat at the end of lunch that were served through school lunch. And then these schools were donating those items. So that's one way to go, especially if you do not have a low or if you do not have a high percentage of free and reduced lunch. Another option would be donating food from the kitchen. So, trays of food that have not been served. I know quite a few schools donate food like before winter break and things like that. But, throughout the year, there's definitely opportunities. And then another way to prevent waste is switching out plastic utensils for, reusable metal ones, switching out disposable trays for plastic or metal ones. Um, and then another option would be replacing items like foods or drinks that come in like single use packaging with items served in bulk. So, milk is one example. We have funded milk dispensers, and then condiments would be another. So, instead of little condiment packets, having condiment dispensers. So, we fund either of those types of dispensers. And then organics recycling is another category. And so for organics, we do have a couple of requirements. Um, the school needs to have a successful recycling program just so, students are already used to sorting their materials. And then to reduce contamination for school lunch, the school must be serving foods in bulk. So, like, not in little individual packages. Um, So, for instance, where items are just like scooped onto a tray versus in a little package. So, like carrots, for instance. Um, and then the school needs to be using reusable or compostable foodware. So, that is also not contaminating the organics. Um, and so, the things that we can help fund would be collecting organics that are going to composting. That's what the majority of the schools in Hennepin County do. We do have some schools that do a food to animals program. So that would be just collecting food scraps to go to a pig farm. And then I think a great way to introduce kids to composting or get them more familiar is to have on site compost bins. So we can fund those as well. And then, say a school is doing organics collection in the cafeteria, you can look at expanding that to other areas in the school. So we've had schools collect food scraps in classrooms, like from breakfast or snack, collecting paper towels in restrooms, things like that. And then we've got one more category. So that's improving or expanding the recycling program. So we've had schools start recycling in their cafeteria, expanding their collection either inside the building if they need like hallway containers or making sure like all their offices have a little recycling bin. And we've also funded recycling containers for outside of the school, so at athletic fields or like near the entrances of the building, things like that. And then we also encourage schools to collect recycling at events. So containers like the ones you see here or other containers are definitely an option too. Any questions at this point, Fernanda?
Not that I see in the chat.
Okay. Well, feel free to add those and we'll pause as we go along. And we should definitely have time at the end for questions as well. And so we're going to walk through some of the eligible expenses. So one would be bins. And we do have a list of bins that the county can order. So just to make it a little more simple for you. So the ones shown, like the recycling bins, organics bins, we do not fund trash bins. We're mainly focused on capturing recycling and organics. So we don't fund those. Except for if it's in a cafeteria station. Because if you have like a sorting station and you need a certain size bin, that is an option. I guess the other option is if it's a outdoor station that's connected, like these ones, we can fund those stations. This is a best practice to have them connected so the trash and recycling don't get moved. Um, Basically, if people have to, walk to find the recycling, they might just put things in the trash, or vice versa. If they have, a piece of trash, it might end up in the recycling. So, want to be mindful of that. And these are some examples at Richfield schools on the left, and then at um, Rogers schools on the right. And another option is preventing food waste. And there's some companies that can help measure food waste either in the cafeteria or in the kitchen, just to help focus on, what items are going to waste and how that can be prevented. So these are just a few examples: Winnow, Food, and LeanPath. Um, and, that can also help just kind of looking at, could we put out smaller pans of food for the last lunch? Because I know, if a pan just is like only half full or less, like it can be less, I guess, attractive, or whatever word you want to use. Kind of similar thing at, delis and grocery stores. So just helping figure out, like, ordering, and then also, how things are um, displayed or set out for the students. Let's go the other way. All right. And then I mentioned sharing tables. So, the cart for a sharing table, the bins to put on top of it, all that's eligible. And then we can fund a little refrigerator to go with the sharing table for those items that, need to be refrigerated to be able to kind of be out there during the whole lunch period. My understanding is like a milk carton could be out there, but then needs to be discarded at the end of lunch. So these just help them, stay cold longer, that students can take them, and hopefully are a little more appealing if it's still cold versus, been sitting out for a couple hours. And you could put other items like string cheese, yogurt, things like that. So we've had some schools get a little fridge to help prevent waste with those items. And the maximum for a fridge is 2,500, just to share that. And we have, the specifics in our guidelines as well. And then for starting an organics program, if the organics program is new, we can fund 3 months of compostable bags and 3 months of hauling services. So then the school would need to, commit to funding those bags and hauling throughout the rest of the school year. We can also fund sorting stations, which I'll show some examples in a moment. Grabbers, so those are, the little, I guess, stick with a little kind of pincher on the end so that you can pull contaminants from the organics. So like if wrappers fall in there, things like that. And then if this school doesn't have space for an organics dumpster and they have an enclosure for trash and recycling, so we have funding to expand enclosures, and that can be up to 5,000 per location. So also upgrades to loading docks would be eligible. And then here's some examples of sorting stations. So some schools have a table like the one on the left where the bins can slide underneath. So this setup, they have, a container for milk at the beginning, and then they have little items hanging above the bins. We found that's really helpful when I've seen students go through this, the line at the end for their waste. They usually like look in the bin, see what's in there. So if you have examples above, that can help them know where different items go. And on the right is like signage rack, and similar, setup with the signs above and then little items hanging over the bins. And then they've got those milk buckets at the beginning of the line. So these are at Lyndale Elementary on the left and Creek Valley Elementary in Edina on the right. And then outdoor compost bins, again, one of the ways that I like to see schools get students to be involved with composting, and they can see the process. So it could be opportunity for like a science class. They can see how quickly things decompose, all that kind of stuff. So on the left, we have some bins at the Osseo Area Learning Center, and they were composting items from their kitchen. And on the right, at City of Lakes Waldorf School. And you could also include, you know, dead plants from gardens or weeds, things like that. So it's not limited to like food scraps, but we like to see those included because that's, a really good material to add to the compost bins. And then some items for waste reduction. So we can fund at least part of a dishwasher installation, so up to 10,000 per school or district, and it's got to be a new dishwasher. We can't replace a broken one. Um, and we can also fund hand dryers to reduce waste from paper towels. So up to 200 per dryer and a $5,000 limit per school or district. And some more waste reduction items. So we can fund reusable foodware. So one that I've thought is really exciting is Northeast College Prep got metal trays for lunch. So those are very long lasting. You don't have concerns about plastics and health impacts from plastics. So those are definitely an option. Also, doing a condiment dispenser area is an option. So we've got some of those on the right. And as I mentioned before, milk dispensers are also eligible. And we fund staff time as well. So up to 75% of the project can be for staff time. And it can include hours to implement the project. It can go towards someone in the cafeteria who is helping students sort their waste. And that can be a staff person or, someone from the community, parents, students. So pretty open on that. And then also we have stipends available for teachers or staff to start an environmental club. I will
Hey, Kira,
pause. Yeah.
we do have a question. How durable are the metal trays?
Yeah, from what I've read, I want to say they last at least like twice as long as a plastic tray. I can double check on that and we can um, share that out. So we'll be sending out the slides um, and then I can share what we've found on that.
Cool. Can staff time pay part of the grant? Hold on. Can staff time pay part of the grant go towards student volunteers for managing waste reduction?
Yeah, we're definitely open to students getting stipends. It can also be for things like pizza party or events to reward students. But yeah, it can for sure go to students that are helping with the project. Anything else right now?
I believe that's it for questions at this time.
Okay. So I wanted to share some examples of recent projects. So I mentioned Northeast College Prep got the reusable metal trays and also got utensils. So they got a grant from us in 2023 for 14,800, and they also had some funds for staff to implement the project. And other than the trays and utensils, they got some magnetic container lids. So in the photo with their sorting station, you can see like a big maroon lid on the organics. So there's a magnet in there. And so it's to catch any silverware that escapes into the organics bin. So that is an option as well. And Northeast College Prep is a K through 8 charter in Minneapolis. Notre École, and if you speak French, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that totally wrong. they got a grant from us for $2,000 in 2023. And they did a couple things in their cafeteria. They added recycling. So you can see their little milk bucket, recycling bin, and added a sharing table. So up in the left, they've got their sharing table, and they also translated our sharing table sign. So we do have a lot of signage available for recycling and organics, trash, and sorting tables. And they translated our backyard composting sign, is one that I've customized to French as well. They were collecting compostable materials in the classrooms, which you can see the picture below. So they've got their sign and their little organics bin, and those were to compost on site. So they were just focusing on, small amounts of food waste, also collecting that from the kitchen, and then they have a compost bin on site. And they're a smaller school. I want to say around 100 students, so more doable to, compost, um, materials from multiple areas. For larger schools, probably need to have organics pick up, even if you're just doing the kitchen and classrooms. And Notre École is a French immersion charter elementary school in Golden Valley. All right, and a more recent project, we've worked with the University of Minnesota. They got a grant in 2024 for $14,920. And the focus was getting new sorting station for Williams Arena. And so previously, they had kind of mismatched bins. They weren't really color coded in the way that, we would recommend with like blue recycling, green organics. So that caused some contamination and, probably confusion among attendees. So our grant paid for 8 of those sorting stations. They're very sturdy plastic lumber, so they should last like a long, long time. And the type that they chose is also, how do I say, like customizable, so you can change the size of the openings. You'd also need to change, the signage above, but those little kind of rectangular and square color coded openings, you can get different sizes. And if you needed to like make the recycling smaller and the compost bigger, you have those options. And so then the U of M also covered the other funding to pay for 18 other sorting stations to put around the arena. So total project a little over 49,000. And they made some fun little bags to put around the arena as well. So I know they put some at like condiment stations, so places where people would be, a captive audience at least for a minute or so. So things like, 80% of the waste is recyclable or compostable. And then aluminum cans are recycled into wires in St. Paul. So just some like fun facts for people to check out. And we have a few others. So just wanted to go over the timeline for a project. So if you're applying in the first round, again, applications are due February 27th. We'll be reviewing proposals in March and then working with applicants to finalize their proposals, throughout March and April. And then, getting into the contracting process. So projects usually start in the fall. You could definitely like order items over the summer, but not usually a lot of activity over the summer, like with students. And then for a 2-year project, you would submit your midterm report or have us come and do a site visit in April 2026. And then we also have schools whose project will just take 1 year. So then you submit your final report in April 2026. And then back to 2-year projects, you would submit your final report by April 2027. So you've got a couple options, either a 1-year or a 2-year project. And then we've got the payment schedule. So once the contract is signed, we'll issue 50% of the grant payment. And then the next 20% of the grant payments will come when the midterm report is approved or the site visit is complete. And I'll also mention that schools can submit receipts and invoices and an updated budget to get their second payment. They don't have to wait till the midterm report or site visit. And then the final report, once that's approved, we send out the remaining 30% of the grant. And so there's a number of ways that we can help out schools. We can help you, with walking around the school, figuring out what are good options of bins and just kind of help you troubleshoot if there's issues you're concerned about. We can do presentations to classrooms and also staff trainings. We have meetings twice a year. We call our Sustainable Schools meetings. So you're welcome to join for those. Our next one we're planning for March. And if you're interested in coming to those, you can sign up on our school recycling webpage. So Fernanda, if you want to put that link in the chat, that would be great. I imagine a lot of you have been on that page. We had our link to sign up for this meeting there. But you can sign up for those updates as well. And now that I said that, that actually gets you our Sustainable Schools e-newsletter. So if you'd like to come to the meetings, go ahead and email me. And we've got the contact on that website, this school recycling at hennepin.us. So e-newsletter, sign up on the website. If you want to come to the meetings, email us. And then we also have lots of different container signs and labels. So for recycling, organics, and trash, we've got laminated signs and then labels you can put on the bins. And then we also have some for sharing tables and resources on food waste reduction. So a lot of options there. And those are free to any school in the county. So even if you don't end up applying for a grant, pretty much all of this is available as well. I should say all of this is available. And so with the application, just some recommendations. We do ask at least 2 folks are listed on the application as people that will be involved. So it's got to be at least 1 school staff. Then it could be volunteers as well. Thinking about education of staff and students, so getting people introduced to the project and then continuing that education throughout the project and explaining how that will continue after the grant. And then we really want to see data. So, how has the waste generated changed? And also, if you're focusing on like reusable foodware, what are you avoiding, by getting like reusable utensils? So say you were using 200 plastic forks a day, multiplying that out by days in the school year so we can have a idea of what waste is being avoided. And it's always great to share goals and progress with your school community. So for instance, if you have trash pickup, 3 times a week, and your goal is to reduce that to 2 times a week, things like that, or other goals as well. And then we also ask how schools will sustain their project beyond the grant. So especially for ongoing, funding needed for things like compostable bags, is that incorporated in like the future budget? Any questions right now?
We don't have any questions in the chat, but feel free to ask away.
All right, so I'm just gonna pull up the application and kind of go through the different sections so you have an idea of what we're looking for. So we're gonna stop sharing the slides and go to document. Okay. Are we seeing a Word doc?
I'm seeing a Word doc.
Sweet. All right. So other than this document, which you can submit as a Word file, as a PDF, or a Google Doc, we're also looking for a budget. So if you want to fill out our form on the school recycling page, we will send you out the application and budget. So the budget can be in Excel or a Google Sheet. And then, on this page, general information about you and your school. And we do need a signature from someone who can enter into contracts. So that could be like uh, your principal, your director of finance, whoever that happens to be. And yeah. So first thing we're looking for is a description of the project. So, what are you doing now? What changes are you proposing? What are your goals of the project and why, you know, um, why this is a good time to do the project and all of that. And then with project planning, who are you meeting with? Making sure you're incorporating maintenance staff, and if you're working with the cafeteria or kitchen, getting those nutrition staff involved. We can also do walkthroughs to provide recommendations. And we have a contractor, Minnesota Technical Assistance Program, who can also help out with doing a site visit and giving their recommendations. So we may connect you with them. We're happy to connect you with schools that you can visit, especially ones that are doing similar programs as you're interested in. And then the data. So we ask you to include what your current hauling levels are. So trash and recycling, and then if you're doing organics, and then if you have any other data on weights for your waste, either that you've done or maybe your hauler has shared those weights. Sharing any of that is great for us to know. And throughout the project, we ask that you track how full the dumpsters are getting. So that helps us, know, if there's an increase in recycling, is your recycling dumpster going from like 3/4 full to full every week, things like that. And we want to see data before you start the project, in the middle and then the end, see the changes over time. And then if you're just looking at like waste reduction or food rescue, you have some other options. You don't need to track the dumpster fullness. So like I was saying before, say, you're using 300 plastic spoons or forks a day, multiplying that out by days in the school year to get a number. Because that number always looks more exciting, thousands of items. And then also tracking if you're donating food, like how many pounds of food or how many items, you donated like 20 cartons of milk and 15 bananas a day or something like that. And then we have some optional ways to track and kind of check in with students and staff as well. And then We want to know who's going to be involved in the project. So like I mentioned, we want at least 2 folks that will be involved. Um, and so actually 2 staff people is what we're looking for, and then any volunteers as well. One of the main things is we want to know who's going to be writing the reports, because that's, the way that we know, how your project is going, and that's what we need to submit or issue the payments as well. And then education, super important. So thinking about how you'll be educating staff and students. Are you going to be doing videos? Are you going to have like classroom presentations? Include things in like newsletters, all those types of things. We also have some videos on our website. So pretty much focus on cafeteria sorting, but we can also share other videos from other organizations if you'd like as well,
Yes, and there's also presentations available for staff.
for sure. And then covered the timeline, but just reiterate. So, like I said, projects usually start in the summer or fall, and I just realized we did not update that to 2025. So I'll make a note. And then with the 1-year projects, looking for a final report by April 30th, 2026. And for those 2-year projects, either a site visit or midterm report by April 15th, 2026. And then a final report by April 29th, 2027. It's weird to say 2027. And then if you apply for a rolling application, we can work with you to decide on a deadline for those reports. And then we've got space to include steps of your timeline. Excuse me. So, trainings, when are you going to be ordering items? When are you going to be tracking data, all that good stuff. And then, like I mentioned, sustaining the project. So, covering ongoing costs, thinking about training and education. Are you going to be coming to our Sustainable Schools meetings? All of that. And then, like I mentioned, the project budget, separate spreadsheet where you include what items you're planning to order and if you'd like to order bins from the county list. So I will stop sharing. And then we've got plenty of time for questions. Folks have other questions. And feel free to, unmute, put things in the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned reusable foodware as an eligible expense. As I mentioned, Our World is a reuse service provider. So we provide both the foodware items and the offsite washing. So for schools that maybe like don't have space for a dishwasher or don't have the staff for a dishwasher, would a reusable foodware service be an eligible expense?
Yeah, we have not gotten that question, but I think we'd definitely be open to it. I think, as a team, we'd have to talk about it and get back to you, but we can
Cool.
definitely do that.
Sounds great.
Other questions? If anybody has project ideas that they want to throw out there, just to kind of get some feedback too. We're available for questions, throughout. If you want to put together a draft application and send that to us, we can give you feedback as well. Yeah, I'll give another minute or so for any other questions. And as you can see, Fernanda put a link to our website in the chat. So if you're interested in getting the application, we have a form that you can fill out, and then we'll email that out to you. It's also got the guidelines and some recently awarded grants if you'd like to see what other schools have done or applied for in the last year. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, everyone. As I mentioned, we'll send out the slides, and I'll look into the durability of the stainless steel and plastic trays, and the reusable foodware service, and we'll include that as well. And again, reach out if you have any questions for us. We have our school recycling email on the website, or give us a call. And yeah, thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.